So let's take a look at a broader look on this from a human and life standpoint. I was born in 1992,
Right.
and if you look at how things are today, the internet is indispensable from pretty much anybody's daily life, unless you're a hermit or something. So you saw that back then, and it was a revelation to you, right? Let's get into, in a little bit later, what is that today? Or maybe that's the topic now. What is that today that is that spark that's so ingenious that could revolutionize things over the next 26 years? Or we can get to it later, it's up to you.
So, interestingly enough, what I think really shifted was, it didn't come until later, but the realization that it was possible kind of came then, was that all these facts and figures, because after this I went back to class to scribble down these notes again.
And work on your handwriting.
And further destroy my handwriting. And as I was writing these notes, it occurred to me that, if I had that computer, if I had access to that computer somehow here, I wouldn't need to write down these notes, because when I needed that information, I could get it from wherever it was. And that kind of sitting in that classroom going, we are doing what computers could be doing for us. That's what I was talking about earlier, where we as humans are good at certain things, and memorizing facts and figures and stuff is not what we're good at. It's not ideal, and it suits a certain type of person, the STEM person, right? It suits a STEM person, a person who will go on to be an engineer of some sort. Or
You're a STEM person, though.
I am a STEM person, but not really. I'm masquerading as a STEM person. In fact, that's one of the reasons I went and did a PhD, was because I felt that if I was going to be dealing with people who were STEM oriented, then me coming in and just telling them, hey, I have this vision for this, I want to do this and this and this, would feel would feel not dishonest, but not authentic, because I wouldn't really understand the background. So I did my PhD in order to be able to understand the thinking that we need in order to apply these STEM principles, so that when I'm dealing with STEM people, I have a peek into that context to work with, right? So yeah, I masquerade as a STEM person, but I'm
what was your PhD in?
Person. It was in visualizing uncertainty.
Okay.
Yeah, so the central thesis is that we have a natural understanding of uncertainty, right?
Like in our instincts, in our blood?
Instinctually, when we are talking, when we're dealing human to human, when we're talking with each other, even when we talk about numbers, we have a natural feeling for how certain that number is. If I say to you, you know what, tomorrow it's going to rain, probably. I've got a sense of, that probably, and that I've communicated that to you, that probably. But if I go to a spreadsheet or any of these other computer programs of the time, and I go, okay, it's going to rain tomorrow, probably. So what's that? Like, let's say 85%. So I'll put 85 in there. It's not exactly 85. It's I had a sense of this kind of shape of how likely, but I couldn't communicate. But we do have models for this. We have all these probability distribution functions, and we have all these methods for like capturing uncertainty. But they're so complicated. They're out of crazily complicated. So what we do is we go through this process, which is essentially truncating all that uncertainty and collapsing it down into a single number, because we can communicate single numbers easily enough with these computer systems. When we're talking, and so I can put together a report, and I can talk to you and say, hey, here's my report, look, our figures are going to be 17. And you're like, oh, so you think it's going to be 17? I'll be like, yeah, probably, but if I had to guess, I'd say 17, but could go up to 20, depending on a couple of other factors, but I wouldn't say any less than about 16, right? So I've got a pretty good handle on the shape of this, even after a whole report, but I can't communicate it to you effectively using the tools that we had. And so I explored how could we make some tools that allowed us to reason better by essentially when I put in a number in a spreadsheet, instead of saying it's 5 and then remembering that, well, it's about 5, and later on I'll try and explain why these numbers are kind of about this and this. I could actually go in and say, well, it's 5, but it's not less than 4, and it's not more than 7, and it's probably going to be about 5. And so if I can enter that information in, then the spreadsheet can still show me 5, but behind the scenes it can track how much that uncertainty that I put in. And then in the end, when I create my graphs and my reports and my final numbers, that information has been brought along with it and integrated with all the other numbers and all the other uncertainty information. So then when I produce my graph, I can choose to say, instead of just making a nice crisp line, kind of flare it out in the bits where we're a bit uncertain and make it crisper where we're more certain about it and things like that. So it allowed us to then show that uncertainty better. And as any good scientist needs to do, you go through and then validate whether or not this was actually useful. And so I got a whole bunch of people and I tried it on them, and I asked them to use lots of different tools that were available to them, and demonstrated that using this they're able to get better outcomes in less time and make less mistakes. And in the end you publish a nice big thick book which not many people read, and you get a PhD, and that's the process. But mostly for me what was interesting was not so much the topic, but the process that you go through and the thinking that you have to go through in order to do a PhD. That was what interested me in doing it.